everyone? So welcome to the Rise, Zen, Shine podcast. This is where we wake up to our inherent vitality, where we discover, recreate, and even redefine exactly what that means to us as individuals, tribes, and communities. So this is where we meditate on our collective experience of vitality so that we can shine forth day to day, moment to moment, and share that energy with everyone around us. This is where we wake up to our power to grow and live life to the fullest. I believe that we were meant to grow so that we have something to give. So join me on this journey as we uncover and illuminate ways that we can thrive as individuals and as a community. So let's get revitalized, everyone. Welcome to the podcast.
Breaking normal is breaking those chains of projections. Like, no. Just because this authoritative figure thought this at this time, that doesn't mean that has to be your truth forever, even on an unconscious level. And that, I think it's sometimes it's learned at such an early age that it almost is mentally incomprehensible.
I know, even imagine the vitality that you're feeling throughout the entire day. How do you kind of maintain that or let it grow even more throughout the day?
I would argue that the truest essence of me and everyone else is not necessarily physical. Let's talk about this in the truth tense, because what you're saying, the way you're saying it could be more true, because what you're talking about happened in the past and that's what you overcame. So let's not say it in the you format in the present tense. Does that, or a cultural conditioning might look like unconsciously wearing many different masks and being like being subdued or sedated by the heaviness hiding. However much someone fears judgment is how much they judge others. So the imagery that's coming up for me is actually a cum shot. Woo! Another news flash, which I believe is that what the inner critic is for most people. It's almost like porn for staying connected to a parent, preacher, teacher, or babysitter. Like conscious as a creator, to being excited to own the mic and speak on stage because they're no longer addicted to approval and they're more being driven by authenticity. My personal values seem to be guided by what I trust is the most loving, generous, grateful essence possible, because I continuously program that into my being. We're all from the same source and we're all heading towards the same destination, that we all want to be the best that we can be. And like me being my best doesn't make anyone else less. Nice, we have people joining. Welcome. What this is my friend Tyrone. I know I'm gonna do. Oh, wow, that was trippy. So for a second, everything I was saying was playing back in my ear like 5 seconds later.
Whoa.
But now I'm with you, Tyrone. And before it was my Facebook, like replaying what I was saying. I was, bro. All right, so let me just focus on what me and you are doing. Basically, Tyrone here, he's joined my Breaking Normal Mastermind, and he mentioned the idea of creating a podcast. And I think I would say I did my duty as the mastermind facilitator and invited Inspired Action Now. And because he started describing the people he wanted to interview, and it pretty much described me. And I was like, yes, sure. Let's stream it live on my Facebook. So welcome to this. And if you have any questions or anything comes up along the way, feel free to type a question and maybe that will start interplaying what we discussed. I'm imagining this will be about 45 minutes for some reason, but yeah, I'd love to hear from you, Tyrone, and see what your intention is.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was feeling as well. Just kind of going to let it flow. I asked a few people on my Instagram and on my Facebook what they kind of wanted to talk about, but most of the feedback that I got was around topics like society and culture, health and wellness, a few health hacks maybe, and then also what you're doing right now. And yeah, I think we can just let loose and go with the flow kind of thing. So
awesome. And I'm particularly in the market to talk about my next chapter in the book. I'm basically revising the book Breaking Normal to include not only something that I think will add extra attention to the golden thread of the message, but also incorporate the information about the app being on the market. They'll both be kind of released at the same time, because there's a lot of people that read the book and they want to do like, whoa, what's next? And if it's not an event, they can start doing something in the comfort of their own home. And I think the Breaking Normal app is a great way to start. And so I'm in the market to talk about the new chapter and the revised edition of Breaking Normal, which will be called Your Projection is Not My Placebo. And that's something, so the way I'm writing the book is basically speaking about it and then having someone transcribe it and make it more understandable in a written format. And then I go back and forth and edit it that way. So I'm going to have someone, her name is probably Deborah. She's kind of like the midwife from my book being published, is going to use this to start the rough backbone of the chapter. Your projection is not my placebo. So I would love, Tyrone, if you're able to catalyze some clarity on that. I love that.
Yes, absolutely. And for anyone on my end that hasn't heard about you, like, I guess I could give a little quick story about how I came across you and ended up joining the mastermind. So
please do. I would love to hear about that, actually.
Absolutely. So I graduated university with a degree in sport management and didn't really know what I was going to do with it when I graduated. So every single opportunity that I had, I would be working at health food stores, being personal training, whatever it was in the health and food industry. And I set out of transforming the lives of at least 1 million people. And I still didn't really have a lot of clarity. So, there's a lot of frustration sometimes in my life and uncertainty. So a lot of the times what I would do is go into nature, go into the mountains, do some meditation and stuff like that. And one day on Facebook, I see this video with all these people dancing, immersing themselves in nature, chilling in like waterfalls. And I was like, whoa, like I need to get connected with these people. And so ever since then, I kind of started following Daniel and his brother as well, and just the whole international tribe design it was called at the time. So Daniel, you led a whole bunch of retreats. Like how many retreats have you led so far?
Like if they're overnight, 4-night, like 4-night retreats, probably about 40.
Nice.
I would guess. Yeah. That's my rough guess right now.
Yeah. And you said you've had like some proposals and given birth to some babies?
Oh yeah. So yeah, there are like these awesome timelines or these awesome highlights in people's lifelines, and that's like meeting her, this queen bee here. I got to meet her, and not at an international tribe design, but a retreat. I met her. We got married 6 months later. JP, he met his now fiance, and then he proposed to her at the next event. One of my really good friends, Raj, he made a baby. I guess they made the baby they conceived the baby at the retreat. Yeah. So all kinds of like major breaking normal events happen in people's lives for sure.
Sensational. Yeah. So
one of a kind, like how many times can, anyway.
Right. Yeah. Lots of magic going on. So with that in mind, like the one that I did see was the one in Montana. Wasn't able to make that one. And I was trying to sell my car actually recently. I was talking with your brother. I was like, yeah, man, I'm trying to sell my car so I can make it to the one in Hawaii that you guys had recently. And also met up with Tyson Wagner as well. We had a little talk about it.
Yeah, because Tyson, that's how we know Tyson. Yep. He sold his car and he came to a retreat that we were hosting in Costa Rica. And he actually came a night early and he got to experience us getting stuck in a river to go see turtles hatching at night. And then he started walking the beach when the turtles were hatching at night. All these birds were like bombing us literally because I guess they're getting the turtles as they hatch. and he almost passed out. It was a crazy night.
Wow. That's crazy. Yeah, he was telling me about all different kinds of experiences there, and I was like, wow, all right, got to get connected with these guys. So yeah, ended up joining the beta testing for the Breaking Normal app, which has been out for how long? Like only like a couple months now? Or?
Yeah, something like that. I mean, it all depends. It all depends how you describe it. But
Yeah.
on the app to use, roughly around that much time.
Yeah.
We're looking ready for like a public release. I'm not sure when this will be uploaded on your podcast, but probably
Right.
like mid-April of sorts.
Yes, around there. So yeah, so with that, I mean, the first like few weeks of even using the app, I had like huge transformation in like my communication, like even just taking videos out in public, like, you know, before, like doing more Instagram lives, all that kind of stuff, and just willing to put myself out there, because I guess like a lot of what the app is self-acceptance through self-expression. Is that kind of right?
Yeah, I would say the main journey that an app user may experience is something along the lines of maybe they've found themselves in life where they're a little bit scared in the stands. They're a little bit of a spectator, and they're like kind of wanting, like, imagine being where there's your hero is speaking on stage, and the hero is now asking, does anybody have any questions? And they're maybe like, they know, first of all, they know they're supposed to be on stage and they're supposed to be sharing their message. And now someone's giving them the opportunity to interact, like, to a direct gateway there. And this app, I think, will bring someone from being too scared to raise their hand or to ask the question, to take the opportunity, being scared as a spectator, to being like conscious as a creator, to being excited to own the mic and speak on stage, because they're no longer addicted to approval and they're more being driven by authenticity. That's the journey that I imagine the app user would take. And I think you're a perfect avatar / testimony of it, in the sense that I believe you're an awesome communicator, and a lot of people would benefit from hearing you communicate about what lights you up the most. And I thought there was a little bit of like, oh, I'll do it when. And I was like, let's do it now. Let's do it now. And so I don't know if you can resonate with the story that I'm talking about, but I'm happy we're doing this right now for sure.
Yes, I can. Yeah. From like a micro level, like just joining the app and stuff like that. And also from like a macro level, like in my life as well, like joining the mastermind was like a big yes to living now for what I want to create in my life, and getting out of my head and, you know, planning for the future, being like, oh, you know, I'll do this, and just embodying, you know, actually living what I want to create in the world. So, you know, joining the masterminds, you were privileged me the opportunity to join that. So thankful for that. So I spent the very last of what I had in my paycheck to join the mastermind. So already getting like 10 times the investment on that. But I think the biggest thing that speaks to that is what you were talking about before, is just truly embodying and coming from a more authentic place in terms of how I want to live my life. So I guess what we can do is we had some questions from people that I wanted to ask quick. And I think it'll tie in nice to what your next chapter in your book is about, actually.
Okay,
so
awesome. Yeah, you said a lot of good stuff there. That was like,
unless you want to expand on what I just said,
I'm like ready to continue. I'm thinking that yeah, let's I'm thankful for everything you shared.
Right on. Yeah. So yeah, I guess like for you know, someone who is maybe along that journey, like what we were talking about, you know, hero's journey, we have this call to action, you know, and sometimes we shy away from it. Sometimes we accept the call and it can transform our lives. So how does someone know, you know, that they've been in this prison of their own mind. Like, what are some symptoms of societal conditioning where, people are like, wow, I didn't even know I was in this prison. Like, what would describe like that prison that someone is in their own mind? And what would be some of the symptoms of breaking free from that prison and embodying, freedom?
Awesome. Thanks for asking that.
Definitely.
Well, yeah, I would argue that the truest essence of me and everyone else is not necessarily physical.
Mm.
And that means that we are basically choosing in a way to how to act. Mm-hmm. And I think when someone, I would describe in the past, a cultural conditioning might look like unconsciously wearing many different masks and being like being subdued or sedated by the heaviness of hiding.
Right.
Of hiding. The ways, like if someone catches himself playing, like feeling obliged to play multiple roles depending on the context. Like, if someone feels like they have to go to work and be this way, and they have to go to their wife and be this way, and then they have to go to school and be this way, or they have to go when they're around their parents, they have to be this way. That would be the symptoms of, I would say, conditioning. Because when I watch Davina, who has not been conditioned by culture, as far as I can tell, she doesn't seem to care. She doesn't she's not concerned with playing different roles. She's she's wild. So the safety, I understand that being in a self-imposed prison keeps someone safe from the wild. At least it gives the illusion of safety from the wild. And when I say the wild, I mean the wild is what someone truly is.
Mm. Yeah, I saw that on one of your earlier videos that you had today, actually, with Davina, actually. And, when she was making the sounds like instead of, getting caught up in a language of excuses that we can easily do, as individuals sometimes. So like, how can we communicate beyond words or tap into what you would say is our inherent nature is?
That's why I love the Breaking Normal app, because it puts people on the spot. It puts them on the spot. It's like an initiation experience. It puts the person on the spot, and they can only interact with other people that allow themselves to be put in the spot. So it's like a group, almost like a group, this virtual tribal initiation. And that's one way I would say put someone's self on the spot, like we are right now. We're putting ourselves on the spot. I'm not exactly sure what this is going to be, but we both feel like it's a great idea. Like it feels good I feel it's good in my body. Feels good. It's exciting. It's unknown, but it feels right. Like that. And I'm going to put myself on the spot and explore it. So I think that's one way to do it. Put yourself on the spot. And there's so many different ways to describe that. It could be described as one's success is correlated with how many uncomfortable conversations they're willing to have.
Absolutely. Yeah. I love that. I mean, like some of the biggest breakthroughs that I've had in life has just been from, instead of getting caught up in like all the excuses and all this stuff, I'm just like, whatever, like I'm just keep on going towards what I'm going to do. Like, for example, one time I had a date with one girl, and it was like my mind, I had to make the split decision, and my mind was like, no, we can wait till later. And I just kept taking action regardless of what was going on in here. And when you put yourself out there, and even with like videos online, I remember putting my first video out and, being afraid of all the criticism or whatever would happen. It was like, just taking action and just doing it.
I wanted to say a little news flash for the one, in my opinion, the one that fears, however much someone fears judgment is how much they judge others. So
Exactly.
that's it. Like, and then accept that. Like, if you face it, you put yourself on camera and experience feeling judged.
Exactly.
Because you're gonna,
Absolutely.
and judged, I mean, like forming an opinion. People are going to form an opinion. I think there's a big difference between judgment and condemnation. But people are going to judge you. I'm judging myself right now.
Same here. I'm judging myself. So,
and judges are allegedly like the most important people culturally. Who's more supreme than a judge culturally?
That's true. Yes, the authority that they have and the way that we revere them. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
and then the time people seem to be scared of judging, and I don't know what that's about. It's like people are scared of acting, but in the meantime, actors are the one that figured out they're acting all the time, so they can just choose to act in certain ways that are to their advantage.
Yes, that's true. Yeah. Well, I did have I was watching another video actually where you touched on exactly what you're talking about now. So that's kind of just had like some thoughts flow up from that. But it was about like on the same topic of judgment and like our inner critic sometimes, right? Like I remember watching a video and you're talking about how sometimes our inner critic comes up so that we can actually accept that part of ourselves. Because like a lot of times, in life, I've had it where, I'm really hard on myself, and it's like coming to terms with that conditioning and realizing that sometimes that's just an aspect that's coming up in order for me to accept that. So
cool. Your camera is doing these amazing things. Like when you snapped your fingers and you did this, it's like your hand gets all pixelated. It's like it's almost as if there's a glitch in the matrix here, which is I agree.
There we go.
Wow. Whoa.
Sorry about that. All right. Yeah.
Can you repeat the question in a quick question one more time?
Yes, absolutely. So for anyone like myself who maybe sometimes is trying to balance, being really, easygoing, not worrying about anything in life sometimes, or being super critical, how do they balance that?
So the inner critic, I'll do another news flash, which I believe is that what the inner critic is for most people. It's almost like porn for staying connected to a parent, preacher, teacher, or babysitter. So it's basically like it's like this masturbatory, this leaking of energy, this illusion of staying connected to one of those people. A parent, most likely, and then a preacher, teacher, or maybe a babysitter. Some authoritative figure early and on their stage. Someone that said that, like, what you're doing right now is not okay, and I love you, and if you want to continue this love, then you're not gonna do that anymore.
Yeah.
So then when they don't do that anymore, it reminds them of this like false connection. But breaking normal is breaking those chains of projections. Like no. Just because this authoritative figure thought this at this time, that doesn't mean that has to be your truth forever, even on an unconscious level. And that I think sometimes it's learned at such an early age that it almost is mentally incomprehensible for a lot of people.
Exactly.
And it can show up in bodies. And that's why there's so many different ways to approach this breaking free of cultural conditioning. And also not for everyone, but a lot of cultural conditioning shows up in being overweight. People can take it on their body, they can take it on their mind, they can take it on emotionally.
That is very true, and I've experienced that through like fitness actually, because I've had it to the point where I was just lifting, bodybuilding, and doing a lot of stuff where I was just focused exclusively on how my body looked, and I ended up pushing myself so hard one time that I got injured, but it allowed me the opportunity to get into functional fitness and come into terms with that aspect. And I was saying, oh, well, why do I need to work out just to look good? Like, what's really behind this behavior? And it came to recognizing like the patterns of the human mind. So like, what is your experience with recognizing patterns in the human mind? Because I feel like a lot of your perspectives from your book in Breaking Normal, you reveal a lot of patterns that, you know, we as individuals go through in like our daily life. So that's one thing I appreciated about your book, because it was like, wow, we can have like a Zen master that's like taking us through the journey of some of these experiences. So like I guess we could give people an example, like you talked about your vegan diet that you used to take, right? And, you know, trying to be really pure and stuff like that, but you had a discovery through that. So I guess you could talk about your discovery through that a little bit, I guess, if you would like. So
yeah, there's man. Yeah, I think if things are, it's a seductive feeling. The arm float analogy is really good. The arm float analogy, it's that it is really, arm floats are very advantageous for someone to learn how to tread through the ocean of emotion, through the waters. But at a certain time, if someone wants to really explore not only what the waters are made of, but what themselves are made of, and how deep they can dive and have a fuller experience, they got to let go of the arm floats. And that feeling of letting go of the arm floats. So I think like alchemizing, realizing, like getting over the lie that feeling uncomfortable or anxious or excited is something, or awkward or narcissistic or egoic, whatever the freak someone wants to call someone when they're allowing their wildness to come out. When they can get over wanting to be that, and they can get over the addiction of approval, then there's a freedom, and it might feel very uncomfortable for a lot of people. But it might actually feel like someone's puking for the first, or I imagine it's like a cathartic experience. Like what I haven't even taken ayahuasca, but it sounds very similar. Like there might be a literally just, you got to really shed the skin of who you're not, and it might even come out in a physical level. But just that feeling of being fully seen, when that experience is a pattern, that to me is a sign of freedom.
Yes, yeah, I definitely have like those purges, and like a lot of like the conditioning that is like associated with that is like what I've noticed, at least from my experience with the app, is making that shift of speaking more from my experience, and more saying like, saying I am doing this or I'm doing that, instead of saying, you should be doing this, and projecting a lot of my ideas. Because sometimes that's what happens as well with the purge, is that that projection almost becomes like a fallback, instead of accepting responsibility for like my own reality. So I guess, could you speak on like the idea of, your projection is not my placebo?
For sure. Yeah. So I think part of the issue is like, whoever will know if the chicken or the egg came first, or God or the universe, or whatever it is, whatever the question of the day is, with that split and the roots that seems to show up everywhere, even in our nerve cells. Who knows? But there is a programming in culture where I imagine most people are actually saying, so let's pretend we're programming an app, and it's very integral what symbols go in what order for the app to function a certain way. And I believe, it seems that from what I've seen from cultured people that have not really listened to what they're saying, most of them say you when they mean I. So there's this unnecessary quantum entanglement right from the beginning of whatever that person says. I believe I prefer to be around people that are curious about their own experience, and they're exploring, and they're willing to report it accurately. And that's exciting to me, like a journalist for their own experience. But when someone, I think a lot of people are telling each other how things are, and they're unconsciously taking that on. They're taking each other's spellings, like instead of you, they're all saying you to each other. I'm like, what? Like, so a lot of times I definitely have broken up. I'm like, by you, do you mean you? Because that is definitely not true for me. To spell the programming and whatever dimension is, like, East Louise. And then I have asked people, and this is what really excites me about this chapter in the book and this concept. Most of the time when I ask people something along those lines, I'm like, all right, quick experiment. Can you say that in the first person? Because I don't think that's true for me. Like, oh, and the other one is we are this, we are that. And I'm like, no, I'm not. Yes. I don't think I'm that. So when I have asked people to ask it in the first person, weird things have happened. Weird things. Like, I imagine what would look like if someone drank ayahuasca.
Yes. I have not tried ayahuasca yet, actually, but
that's funny. That's a theme tonight. But anyway, yeah, like sometimes it's just weird. There's like it's like when your hand kind of made a glitch in the matrix. They sometimes get frozen, sometimes they get defensive. I see the fear, like the fight, flight, freeze, or facade come on. I'm like, wow, I didn't know. And then for some people have like gladly did it. They did like, oh wow, interesting. They've kind of done it. And then most of the time for the people that did that, they believe what they said less. They're not even convinced they believe what they said anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, it's almost like a mirror.
There's a safety in like vomiting and hoping someone else partakes in the vomit. Because then if someone else is swimming in my vomit, then I don't know I'm sick. I would trust if I'm vomiting, people are staying away.
Exactly. So like, I love what you said before about like it's almost like a spell, right? So like how do we make that dispel? Like, is it primarily through what you're talking about, is taking that responsibility on ourselves and speaking more from our experience?
Yeah, I'm a bit concerned of how easy the what I imagine the way to do it is. This is basically to watch myself, to listen to myself. So if I'm all of a sudden I'm watching myself and how I'm behaving and what I'm saying, then my personal values seem to be guided by what I trust is the most loving, generous, grateful essence possible, because I continuously program that into my being. I consciously choose that, and it feels most aligned. So if I watch myself and there's something, if I say something out of alignment, then I can reprogram it. If me and Deanna are emotionally heated, and then I say something, I'm like, oh my, I got a little caught. I got hit by a wave. I got hit by a wave of emotion, and I started vomiting a little bit. Then I can be like, oh, I caught myself. Like, I do want to apologize about that. That part wasn't true. I just exaggerated to try to prove a point. And like listening to myself. That's so my idea would be whenever we can all realize that we're writing the script to the movie of our life, or writing the dialogue for the book of our life, or our book of our existence. And I think this is how the Bible starts too. So, but then people get all caught. I wonder if people got caught up about a lot of the other Bible, but that is like one of the main messages from the most distributed book of all time. So how to even get that message out there in a more clear way is a great freaking question.
Absolutely. And yeah, I love the whole entire like meta perspective from it, because I remember the first time that I picked up a book, and it was an NLP one, but it talked about what meta means, and it was thinking about thinking. But what it tapped for me was taking more of an observant point on what are the patterns in my life, and kind of untangling some of those beliefs. So like what you talked about, observing yourself and actually being able to catch yourself. Not like a lot of people can do that in the moment. So like, what is something practical, I
Well,
guess?
so the first practical thing is that a lot of people can do it, and a lot of people are doing it.
True. I like that.
There's
shift.
a lot of inspirational people that are saying what the problem with humanity is. And I'm like, no, that's what the problem with the humanity was. Do we really want to get over this, or do we want to become famous about preaching about it?
I love that. And I thank you for actually acknowledging that pattern that I had going on there, and actually speaking more truth into what is happening now. So,
but by the time, anytime I speak about something, it's already in the past, in my opinion. And I can speak about things in the present, and those are the things that I choose, like I would want in my life. Why else would I speak about them in the present? Because anything I can honestly speak about is either already happened in the past or like a guess of what the future is going to be. But I do believe our guesses, like we can bias how the guesses play out.
Amen to that. And thank you for acknowledging that. I experienced this shift myself.
Awesome. Yeah, I believe it. It's a big point. It's a big part of, I think, that your projection is not my placebo. When there's a super inspirational figure that has gotten over so many issues, but he's speaking about them in the first tense, and like in the present tense, in the you format, and all these people are in this seduced, or like this like very open state. I think there's just a small, it's like I'm a programmer. I'm wondering if I have a programmer for the app, am I a programmer for communication? And if I am, let's talk about this in the truth tense, because what you're saying, the way you're saying it could be more true, because what you're talking about happened in the past, and that's what you overcame. So let's not say it in the you format in the present tense. Is this coming clear? Because this is what I want Deborah to listen to and figure out how to gift this into text.
Yes.
Do you understand what I'm saying about this, Tyrone?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Cool.
For me, what's happening is just a big shift of a transformation in my language, because I did have like a string of thought that was going there, and then it was just kind of just dissolved. So just bringing myself into this moment even more. So
awesome. Yeah. Cool.
But yes.
Cool.
Yeah. So I mean, when we do become the programmers, when we are programmers of our reality, how can we do that to create more vitality in our life? And like, what does that actually look like for us? Like, how would you define vitality?
All right, that's a great. I was thinking about. I had a feeling this might come up tonight, and I think I caught myself even thinking about it before we were going to be on the call. But one thing is to realize that we all have there's the cool thing about us is that we can shine in an individual way brighter than anyone else, because we are like, it seems like we're uniquely created. That although we might all be channeling the same source in a way, we distribute it uniquely. Like, so different light bulbs, different snowflakes, different, you can even look at a certain type of fish versus another type of fish, or like maybe like these are some ideas that I've thought about. Like, what if vegetarians are from bonobos? Like the vegetarian, ultra spiritual type of vegan, free spirit, matriarchal type of mindset. What if they evolved from bonobos? And then what if the more like warrior mindset, like rising to the top, we're here to, like, competition is cooperation, evolved from chimpanzees. And then where did like the chimpanzees, I'm just, I'm like throwing ideas. I just want people to realize like what works best for someone else doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work best for for you. Now I do think when one finds what works best for them, they deserve to share it. Like, please share it so we can try it.
Mm.
Please share it so
Amen.
we can try it. And
Yes.
yeah, I think there's so many different ways to program vitality into one's life. And the one that I've been talking about in the mastermind a lot is starting the day. I start it by, one of the things I do is get in my freezer over there that's filled with water. I unplug it, but it's very cold water, and I go in there and do a little whoa ritual, and I make a nice whoa green juice, and then I go on this nice whoa walk where I am listening to one of my most inspirational people I can imagine on an audiobook. So their life's wisdom put into a link that I can click on. So a legacy and a link from one of my most inspirational thought leaders ever known, whether they're alive currently or not. And then I can listen to their life's wisdom in like a distillation format of even like faster than 1 times the speed. So like 1.5 speed while I'm walking down the block, looking at my daughter. Like, so that's a pretty strong start to programming vitality into my day.
That is. And is there like, that's just the start. So, I mean, that's kind of, even imagine the vitality that you're feeling throughout the entire day. How do you kind of maintain that, or let it grow even more throughout the day? Because I think of something like the Fibonacci principle, where it's kind of expanding even more and more.
Yeah, I'm sipping on a beer right now.
Ooh,
yeah,
all right.
And that's one way I think I also increase my vitality.
Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I feel like I do pretty good on a couple beers a day.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, and I'm very hesitant sometimes to talk about it, because when I watch other people drink beer, I'm like, whoa, if I drink beer like that, I would not probably think it's a health hack anymore. Just like imagine the amount of garlic that I add to my salad, and then I see someone else just like taking huge chunks of garlic, like, and like, oh, and then like having this huge story about how bad garlic is, and then I'm like,
yeah,
man, I don't know if I should promote this garlic because the way that other people are using this. So, and so there's, I do things that I'm a real investigator, and I can probably rationalize anything too. So there's a whole, I'm a very aware of the infinite amount of thoughts I can have. But long story short, I choose, whatever I'm doing, I choose to believe it's best for me. Otherwise, why the freak am I doing it?
That's huge. Yeah. Especially, eating food too. I noticed that even just a huge shift, like anytime that I'm eating something that I might not think would be as good for me, like if I'm traveling or something like that, it's like, no, like, I'm going to enjoy the crap out of this Tim Hortons donut at this airport. I believe it is good for me, because I don't know, I've just noticed the impact in myself and the shift from being like, oh, you can't eat this, this isn't going to be good for you, to I'm just going to enjoy this.
Yeah, my grandma, I don't know if she had any kind of diet, but whatever she ate, she seemed to eat it so eloquently and enjoy it, and it was so sacred. And she lived to 100. She was one that, I mean, it was like she could turn a strawberry into a meal.
Yes. Yeah.
And she could also eat like the fattest bacon. I think it's called like fatback in Georgia. So it's like what some people like, what is worse, like from some vegans perspectives or some non-fat perspectives, it would be like worse than bacon. And she would enjoy that maybe more than she would enjoy the strawberry.
Exactly. Yeah. I definitely resonate with that. Like, even like with like a lot of the older people that I've talked to, and they drink alcohol, they eat certain things, where before, when I was on like a hardcore diet, I'd be like, oh, that's not good, but they enjoyed it, and it brought them that sense of vitality. Like, it was almost like a ritual that they would have. They'd be, every evening I have a little sip of whiskey, and these people are like 100 and whatever. So it's like, whoa.
I can see I can see how someone can make like a strong leap, like a little whiskey and live to 100. But,
right.
like, what's coming to mind is this idea that that the medicine is in the poison, and that the poison is in the dosage. And I imagine any shamanistic or any chef would understand that.
Absolutely.
Whether it's garlic or whether it's whiskey.
Yes. And I remember watching one of your quantum consultations about cannabis as well, actually. And you talked about it's actually more about the perspective of the people and their beliefs that are using it as opposed to the actual thing itself. So I think what you just said speaks to that quite nicely.
Oh, yeah, and these are not clear topics, in my opinion. They're pretty complex. Cannabis, alcohol, ayahuasca, garlic, whatever we want to talk about. Some of those are, it reminds me of the colors or God, that there may be as many humans as many definitions there are to that word. These are just some of the words that kind of radiate around before the root, before the split. It's like the seed of life, that polarity. So these topics, I understand, like these, it's not that clear. A lot of people are very convinced that cannabis is destructive. And I for those people, I imagine that's true for them. No. Yeah, I have this thing that to cut to the real core, that I believe everyone's telling the truth about themselves.
Yes. And we reflect it in each other to like an extent. Like one thing that I did want to ask you is like, how do you see other people? Like when you said, you look at Davina, you look at her from the perspective of the creator, of like from the view of like our higher selves, I guess you could say, when you see other people. So going back to what we were talking about before, when we dispel a lot of the projections, we give people more empowering perspectives. So what's like a more empowering way that people could see themselves? And I guess it starts with ourselves. So what's an empowering way that people could see
the imagery that's coming up for me is actually a cum shot.
Woo!
That's a big topic lately. So like literally semen. So semen. Like although there is one cum shot that that begins life for Davina. Many cum shots, but one cum shot made it happen. And actually only one sperm made it happen. And how many millions of sperm were in that cum shot? So the thing is that like, although we're all from the same source and we're all heading towards the same destination, that we all want to be the best that we can be. And like me being my best doesn't make anyone else less.
Wow.
And I want everyone else to realize that. Can you imagine if some sperm were like, "Hey, bro, you better play small because looks like you're excelling. Well, maybe like you might win this race." No. I imagine they're all going full out because no matter who wins, they all win.
That is the greatest description of a cum shot I have ever heard. And it definitely is. It's true. So in the metaphorical sense, so yes. That's all I'm going to be thinking about for the next while here.
So it's pretty much like embedded in our creation.
It is.
Yeah, on that note, I think that's what the other thing that for someone going through the experience of breaking normal, whether it's on the app or the book or an event, they become more polarizing. Basically. They're more polarizing. That they're owning their divinity, their unique divinity so much that whatever scale on the spectrum it becomes, it's like more accentuated and highlighted, and they stand out. Like someone like JP Sears, like the way I've described it is when we first met, he was very, he was showing one safe side of himself on camera, which is he's a genius emotional healer. But he asked me a few times, like at the retreats, what is it? They're like, what's the difference? Like, Daniel, what do you think? Like, is there any way I'm playing it small? And I'm like, I think you're a professional eggshell walker. Like you like can walk on eggshells so well. Like I want to see what happens like when you dance on eggshells. They're just like, that doesn't even matter. It's fine. Like whatever you're doing, whatever wants to come through you, you're going to let it do it. And like now when I see him, you know, he's coming to San Diego soon and he has 5 sold out comedy shows. And it's because part of it is I think he's literally, I get offended. I get offended at some of his shows.
Oh yeah.
But it's such a loving way. I get offended in such a loving way. Or I've gotten, let me put that in the past tense because maybe this time won't be no offense. But I've gotten offended in some of his shows, but it's like such a loving, it's like someone taking off my arm floats in a way. So it means so much to me that he's dancing on eggshells now. And that's why I think a big part of what we're talking about is represented by that avatar of someone that's good at walking around on eggshells and then deciding to dance on them instead.
Wow. Yeah.
And that's what I think all the sperm want. That's all why would we not all want that? Because we want the winning sperm to be the best and their best.
I definitely agree with that. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I've noticed that actually when I was watching JP's videos as well, like in the past, from him being a lot more reserved and stuff like that to being, wow, like this dude is speaking to my heart. And I have been offended quite a bit, I'll admit too.
Nice. Doesn't that feel good though when he's good?
It does.
That's what he is. That's who he is. It's like, shit, man, like being who you are could offend me. And I'm happy about it. Like, especially when I think someone's really who they are, in maybe it's a delusional opinion, but when someone's really who they are, they're so loving.
What do you think is the connection behind that? Is there something that catalyzes that?
Yeah. Oh, that catalyzes what?
Coming from that more like loving place, like what exactly is that you know someone can be so raw and you know can offend someone, but you feel that love?
Yeah, I think it's really letting go of the comfort of living up to other people's expectations. That there might just like I understand how that can be comfortable to live up to other people's expectations. And to letting go of that might be a little uncomfortable. It might feel like letting your arm floats go, but it's really fun to swim underwater too. It's like really fun to swim rather than just float.
Yes. Right on. How are we doing for time here? I'm just curious.
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know if there's a timer on mine. I'm feeling pretty good, honestly, like regardless of even looking at a time.
Right on. I'm cool to keep rocking. So
you mean you're cool to keep rocking, like talking?
Oh yeah.
Oh, and I was meaning I'm like pretty good. Isn't that, see, this is good. I meant that I'm like good to close the loop.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And I am good to keep rocking as well. But when you asked that question, I was answering honestly. I'm like, oh, I'm actually feeling pretty complete, but I didn't clarify that enough. So thank you. So this is how things get misunderstood when someone is not willing to take the extra step to be like, wait a minute, what did you say?
Yeah.
That's another way of those things. If your projection is not my placebo, I've been on a retreat literally where someone's in the back of the bus and they're complaining how they're feeling unsafe about the driver to themselves, only to the people in the back. I'm like, whoa. So it's like, is your life less important than speaking up? Why don't you tell the person that is actually the one creating the circumstance for you and say, hey, I feel a little unsafe because I'm pretty sure they'll slow down. But instead they were like that would be too much at that moment for them. So they were just gossiping about it in the back. So, and these are small examples of how that's a project, like even whoever's listening to that would be doing a disservice. If the person is listening, they're like, no, you want to tell the person up there because this is where the projections begins. So I think not only not projecting, but cutting off other people's projections in a loving way is part of this whole grand scheme of what we're talking about tonight and the chapter. So I'm happy to reflect upon this. Yeah.
Right on. Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And definitely speaks to so many places on my life, but yes, I agree. We can definitely wrap it up. I was wondering, yeah, if you did have anything else that you wanted to say here, anything else that you wanted to share with anyone. I guess one thing that I could ask you, because I kind of want to get like a little Zappa Zen, I call it, for the podcast there, where I just ask people what they're most grateful for today at the end of the podcast, to kind of leave on that note of gratefulness, because I am very grateful that you've taken the time today to have this conversation. And for anyone that's listening today, I want to express gratitude for all of us sharing this moment today. So yeah, what are you most grateful for today?
Yeah, well, I'm definitely super grateful for our connection and this synergy, and both of us taking inspired action together, and to make it something outside of this context. I'm super grateful. Like today, walking in and out of my house, I did a lot of synchronous things were happening, but every time I walk in and out, Davina is sort of following me and like waiting. Like when I come back, she's happy to see me, and she's almost like the gatekeeper. She's like watching me, like having Davina watch me means so much, because it realizes how important what I'm doing is. And I think that's the case for whoever's watching. If you feel like you're not being watched, it's still extremely important what you're doing.
I love that. Yeah. And I've noticed that presence as well from like watching some of your videos, just feeling that energy of, just your connection with Davina is just inspiring. I can't really put it into words right now. It's just inspiring for me to watch that. So, do you have any advice to someone who is a parent out there that's listening? What's one thing that they could do today to cultivate that joyful connection with their child or with their family?
Wow, I would say like watch them and listen to them. Like if they're speaking, and this is something we've been talking about in Mastermind, if they're speaking, like listen so closely to what they're saying that you could explain it to someone else, even in a better way. Like challenge yourself. Can you explain what this person is saying, even in a better way? Like listen that closely. It's like giving them attention, that type of like focused attention, because I think that essentially that is a nice catalyst, like a magnifying glass for them, and they become I imagine that helps them become more who they are. So now I'm not saying to judge them or tell them what they're doing is wrong or right, but I'm like, can you understand where they're coming from? That's how I'm navigating this so far. I'm like, can I understand where Davina's coming from? Like, what is she thinking right now? Like, she's not speaking English, but I have a pretty good idea what she's saying.
Yeah. Communicating beyond words. So absolutely. So with the podcast, so it is called Rise, Zen, Shine. So the Zen aspect of it, I mean, Zen in itself means to meditate. And so what is maybe one idea that we could leave people with here today? What's one aspect of their life, or one thing you think that they could meditate on and embody that would really let them shine, which is the rise and shine aspect of it? So what's one thing they could meditate on for their day, if they're listening right now, or for tomorrow, that would allow them to shine their truest nature?
Cool. Yeah, I would say that anytime anyone finds themselves not speaking, that you are meditating. And if we're going to make the split for a little clarity, a little contrast, a little polarity, a little two-sided of the coin, then every time maybe you're speaking, you're praying. That would be my projection. Now, don't make it your placebo, but if you believe it, maybe give it a go.
I love that. All right. I think that's a great one. So, so for anyone who's listening, I will be posting on my website riseandzen.com. I'll post it in like the show notes, or send you a link as well, Daniel. But what I wanted to create was a 1-day challenge where they could experience vitality through the lens of Daniel Eisenman himself, and some of the tools or practices that you use to leverage creating more vitality in your life, so that you have, like what you're saying before, even greater energy to share with those around you. So would love to do like a 1-day challenge kit, so people will have access to what you use. You said you make your smoothie there in the morning, so would love to know maybe some of those secret ingredients and just some of your daily practices.
Well, one of the secret ingredients as of late, which I definitely believe is taboo, is kratom. And I don't know, that's one of those things I'm not sure if I necessarily recommend, because I've heard about taking in high dosages and how people, there's like a very polarized belief around that. And there's a belief that it helps. If someone is listening and they find themselves addicted to opiates, allegedly it's one of the greatest ways to transition off of those. And then that's why there's a lot of controversy potentially around the FDA. Is this leaf ground up really this? This is my imagination. Maybe, but I'm imagining that if they find out a leaf that you can just grind up is very competitive with a lot of other pharmaceuticals, that could be reasons to find out is it a good or bad idea, and plant ideas around that.
Hey.
and it could, anyways, it's another one of those taboo topics. But yeah, that's fun to think about. Yeah. However I can support you in creating that day.
Yes.
Let me know.
Right on. Well, yeah, we'll talk more about it. And people will have access to experiencing what breaking normal is. So it's called the Breaking Normal Kit. So
Nice.
Learn how to break normal. But I would recommend for anyone that wants to get in contact with you, Daniel, what should be the place that we should send them to?
breakingnormal.com, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because then there's the book, and then when the app is depending on when someone listens to this, the app might be ready to purchase right there, or not even purchase, to use for free. There's going to be different options. That app, there's some exciting happenings with that happening right now. Or maybe a way for giving feedback to basically earn a cryptocurrency coin.
That sounds enticing to me.
There's an analysis. Are we monetizing connection?
Right on. And is that going to be tied into what you're talking about in so I guess with your book, you're coming out with another copy of it with just the additional
like a
chapter,
revised edition with a new chapter, basically, and potentially a new cover and subtitle. But the new chapter, Your Projection Is Not My Placebo, is like the driving force behind that shift. So all the readers, because a lot of people are reading it and loving it, and I think looking for more, and I think it's time for them to know that the app is available when it will be, which I think will be about April. Seems like a lot of things spring up in April. I got engaged, married, and had a baby, move in and out of houses. There seems like all kinds of April happenings.
Yeah, I'm loving it. Blossoming of a lot of great things. So including this first episode of this podcast, which I thank so much for you, Daniel, for helping me be able to give birth to this and give in to that blossoming energy around this time. So I thank you a lot for giving me the empowerment to really own my power a lot more, and to have a life full of freedom and embody what I want to do in life, not just talk about it. So thank you.
Yeah, and I'm happy to talk about, especially Your Projection Is Not My Placebo as you embark upon the podcast, because the podcast is a great freaking idea, and most people will say yes to it. I bet most people will say yes to you, and I think it's important to realize that, once again, that their truth, that they might shine in a different way than you're supposed to shine, and somehow getting the listeners to understand that. And maybe it's by listening to this podcast. It's like how to listen to a podcast. Realize what that person says is working for them. They are one of billions. one of billions. And it would be crazy to compare a giraffe to a dolphin. And it would be crazy to compare even a pit bull to a chihuahua. And I don't know how dynamic humans are, but I think that we are meant to shine in unique ways. And that's where like breaking normal really means to me, is like really owning that our individual divinity. And that is winning. Like me being my best doesn't make anyone else less. And I want to be around people that are ready to be their best as well. And I don't have to get all crazy about it. I can be actually happy about it. So thank you for being so awesome.
Yes. Thank you, Daniel. I celebrate that. And yeah, let's kick it off on that note. And yes, thank you everyone for tuning in and for listening to this conversation. So, and thank you, Daniel. Thank you again. I'm just in great appreciation. I mean, I noticed myself during the podcast, first time experience being like, oh, like, you know, people are going to judge me for not being able to keep up with some of your ideas sometimes. And that's just a judgment that I had on myself. So that is my little projection. That is.
Well, I could be judging myself for the same thing. I could be like judging myself like, does anyone even understand what I'm saying? Do I understand what I'm saying? Does that even make sense?
Yeah, I totally enjoyed myself in this podcast, and then like through beyond words, I'm feeling a great shift right now of appreciation for everything. So
awesome, thank you, Tyrone. Yeah, I've made it a habit of showing up authentically, and when I do, it seems like other people are appreciating it, and you are an affirmation of that. So thank you. It's awesome to see it happening.
amen.